The first thing I noticed, every time, was the smell. Not the rust or old grease, or the sweet chemical cleaner they used on the walkways. Not even the popcorn that never quite went away, like the park had soaked it up years ago and refused to let it go. It was the lemon. A soft, clean lemon scent that didn't fit the rest of the place. It made me think of school hallways after a custodian had mopped, or a small apartment kitchen right before someone cooked dinner. Familiar, domestic, like it belonged to a life that didn't need fences. I stood at the entrance to Wonderworld with my hands in my jacket pockets and tried to remember why I had come here. That part was always tricky. Not because I didn't know. I knew. I had a paper pass in my pocket and a date stamped on it and a thin, official-looking seal that meant I was allowed inside for exactly one shift. I just didn't always feel like the person who had applied. "Okay," I whispered. "We're here." No one answered out loud, obviously. The people around me were busy showing their passes, stepping through the metal detector arches, getting their wrists stamped with bright ink that looked cheerful from far away and clinical up close. But inside my head, someone sighed. "You're early, Mira," a voice said. "Calm, tidy, like a librarian who didn't mind helping you, but wished you'd stop bending the pages." I blinked. "I'm not early. I'm on time." "Time is a suggestion in a place like this," the voice replied. That was Rowan. When Rowan spoke, it usually meant something practical was about to happen. Check the pass. Watch the guards. Keep your face neutral. Don't stare at the security drones. The drones were new since last year. They hovered above the entrance lines like quiet fish, their lenses turning slowly. They didn't look menacing. They were white and smooth and rounded, designed to seem harmless. That, I had learned, was part of the problem. A child in front of me bounced on their toes, pointing at the big archway that read welcome in huge friendly letters. The O in the word was shaped like a smiling sun, and for a moment I almost believed it. Then the child's guardian tugged their sleeve and said, very quietly, "Remember, no running, no questions." The child's shoulders sank. They nodded like a small person agreeing to a much older rule. I got my wrist stamped. The ink was blue and cold. The worker didn't look at my face. They rarely did. They didn't need to. I stepped through the gates and into the park. Wonderworld was still bright in the way it had always been bright. The paint on the buildings had been refreshed recently, smooth and perfect, almost too perfect. The music that drifted from the hidden speakers was gentle and slow, like lullabies turned into background noise. The air tasted faintly of sugar and metal. I walked down the main street, and my boots made a soft tapping sound on the spotless pavement. It was quiet for an amusement park. Not empty. There were visitors, scattered in careful groups, moving as if they were following invisible lines. There were staff in crisp uniforms, stationed at corners and ride entrances. There were security checkpoints that looked like kiosks for maps. But the whole place felt paused, like a toy town in a display case. Rowan's voice returned. "You should review the assignment." "I know the assignment," I murmured. A couple passed me, holding hands in a way that looked rehearsed. They didn't seem to hear me. Rowan was patient. "Say it anyway." I pressed my thumb against the stamped ink on my wrist and tried to ground myself in what I could control. "I'm here for the night shift orientation," I whispered. "I'm a temp. Maintenance support." Not exactly a lie. Not exactly the whole truth either. "You applied as Mira," Rowan said. "If you want to stay Mira, we should do Myra's plan." I took a slow breath. Okay. I had a plan. In the way people say they have a plan when they're mostly trying not to fall apart. The plan was simple. Get through orientation. Keep my head down. Find the service corridor behind the old carousel. Reach the staff lockers. Retrieve the small envelope that I was fairly sure I had left there a month ago, when I'd been here under a different name and a different shift. Then leave. That was it. No heroics. No big revelations. Just retrieving something that belonged to us. Something important enough that even when I couldn't remember why, I still ended up back at the gates. The park's central plaza opened up in front of me. In the middle was the carousel, huge and ornate, with painted horses and swans, and strange hybrid creatures that looked like they'd been designed by someone who couldn't decide what a child would like. A ring of lights ran along the top. They glowed softly even during the day. Not bright enough to draw attention, just bright enough to remind you they could be brighter if they wanted. To my right was a cafe that served nostalgia treats, according to the menu board. To my left was a souvenir shop full of clean, identical plush toys, with wide smiles. Straight ahead was the staff building, plain and blocky, like a school office dropped in the middle of a dream. That's where I was supposed to go. And then, as if the park itself had noticed my attention, a voice came through the speakers overhead. "Good afternoon, valued guest," it said in a warm, genderless tone. "We're so happy you're here." I paused. The voice continued. "Reminder, for your comfort and safety, please remain in designated areas. If you need assistance, visit any staff station. Our team is ready to help." Normal announcement. Standard. Safe. And then, very softly, almost as an afterthought, it added, "Mira, orientation begins in 7 minutes." My stomach tightened. Rowan went quiet. A different voice, sharp and quick, slipped in like a coin dropped into a vending machine. "Did you hear that?" It said. "That's not normal. That's not normal at all." That was June. June didn't like rules. June didn't like fences. June didn't like being told what we were allowed to do. "Yeah," I whispered. I heard. "How would the park know your name?" June asked. "How would it know any of our names?" Rowan returned, calmer but tense. "They read the pass. They scanned the stamp. This place records everything. But an announcement," I said, out loud. June snorted inside my head. "That's the point. This place likes to remind you it's watching." I started walking toward the staff building, trying to move like someone who belonged there, like a temp employee on their first day, like a person who wasn't startled by a park speaking their name. The staff building lobby was cool and smelled faintly of the lemon cleaner. The walls were white. There were posters with cheerful cartoons explaining safety procedures and guest satisfaction behaviors. A receptionist sat behind a glass panel, tapping at a screen. She glanced up just long enough to scan my wrist stamp and my pass. "Temp?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She slid a plastic badge through a slot in the glass. It had my picture on it, taken months ago, and the name Mira printed in all caps. Under that, maintenance support. "This way," she said, pointing without looking. I followed the hallway to a small orientation room with rows of chairs and a screen at the front. A handful of other temps sat scattered through the room, staring straight ahead, as if they were trying to become invisible. I chose a seat near the back. The lights dimmed automatically. A video began. It was calm and friendly, the kind of corporate training that assumes you are half asleep and treats that as a feature. "Welcome to Wonderworld," the narrator said. "A place where everyone belongs." June muttered lies. Rowan didn't argue, but I felt the agreement anyway. The video continued with instructions: where to stand, what to say, what to do if a guest cried, what to do if a guest asked forbidden questions. If a guest asks about the outside, the narrator said, respond with, "Wonderworld is all you need today." If a guest asks about the fences, respond with, "Those are for your safety." If a guest asks about missing zones, respond with, "Some attractions are resting." My skin prickled at that phrase. Resting. Like the park was a living thing. Halfway through the video, the narrator's voice changed slightly. Not in tone, but in focus. Like it had leaned closer. "Mira," it said. My throat went dry. The other temps didn't react. Maybe they didn't hear it. Maybe it was meant only for me. Maybe it was meant only for whoever was currently driving. June immediately leaned forward in my mind. "Don't answer." Rowan's calm voice was tight. "Keep your face neutral." The narrator continued. "Your comfort matters. If you feel disoriented, please report to the reflection room." The screen showed a map of the park. A small highlighted circle blinked near the back, behind the old attractions. The reflection room. The video resumed its normal tone, as if nothing had happened. I sat very still until the lights came back up. A supervisor walked in and handed out schedules, without smiling. "You'll start tonight," she said. "Report to the maintenance bay at 1900. Don't wander." Her gaze landed on me, for a fraction of a second too long. Not hostile. Not friendly. Assessing. Yes, ma'am, I said. The orientation ended. People filed out. I stepped back into the bright, paused-in-time park, with my badge clipped to my jacket. June was buzzing. Reflection room? That's a trap. That's absolutely a trap. Rowan was more measured. Or it's a test. Or it's an offer. An offer for what? I asked under my breath as I walked. To help you, Rowan said. June scoffed. This place doesn't help. It controls. The two voices overlapped for a moment, and the familiar pressure built behind my eyes, like a crowd pressing toward a door. I stopped near the cafe to let a group pass. I stared at the menu board without reading it. Okay, I thought. Okay, we're not doing this in public. I'd learned, over years and appointments and gentle, careful therapy sessions, that panic didn't help. Fighting didn't help either. What helped was noticing, naming, giving everyone space without giving up control completely. Rowan, I said silently, what's the priority? Retrieve the envelope, Rowan replied immediately. Exit safely. And June's voice was quick. Don't let them corner us. Don't go into any rooms you can't leave. Good, I whispered. We can work with that. I turned away from the cafe and started walking toward the carousel. The closer I got, the stronger the feeling became. Not fear exactly. More like being watched by something that wasn't trying to hide it. The carousel was closed. A neat chain blocked the entrance with a sign that said attraction resting. There was no cheerful explanation. No dates. Just resting. I circled it casually, like a guest who was mildly disappointed and moving on. Behind the carousel, past a row of decorative hedges, I found the service door I remembered. A plain metal door with a keypad. My fingers trembled as I reached for it. The last time I'd been here, I'd been frantic. I remembered flashes, the smell of lemon cleaner, the cold of metal, the fear of forgetting something important. What I didn't remember was what the envelope contained. That was the worst part. Knowing you cared deeply about something and not knowing why. June's voice softened, just a little. It's yours. Whatever it is, it's ours. Rowan added, and retrieving it is a form of continuity. It matters. I typed the code I hoped was still valid. The keypad beeped, and the door clicked open. I slipped inside. The service corridor was dimmer, lit by long ceiling panels. The lemon smell was stronger here. The walls were bare. The floor was clean, too clean, like they wanted even the hidden spaces to feel controlled. I walked quickly, but not running. There were cameras, I knew. Even if I couldn't see them, I knew. At the end of the corridor was a door labeled staff only. No labels beyond that. No numbers. No names. I opened it and stepped into the locker room. Rows of metal lockers lined the walls. The air was cool and dry. No one was inside. The only sound was the faint hum of ventilation. I moved to the far corner, to the locker I remembered. Third row, bottom. The lock was old-fashioned, the kind you turn by hand. My hands hesitated on it. June whispered, hurry. Rowan whispered, steady. I turned the lock. The locker opened with a soft squeak. Inside was an envelope, exactly where I'd left it, tucked into the back corner behind a folded uniform shirt. My breath released in a shaky rush. Relief hit me so hard I had to grip the locker door. I pulled the envelope out. It was plain, unmarked. No writing. No seal. Just thick paper, slightly bent. I sat on the bench in the center of the room and held it in my lap, staring at it like it might speak first. Okay, I whispered. Okay, this is the thing. June was practically vibrating. Open it. Rowan was cautious. Not here. Not yet. But we're here, I murmured. We got it. We can open it. June snapped. If you don't open it, we'll just come back again. Forever. That's how this works. She wasn't wrong. I slid a finger under the flap and opened the envelope. Inside was the smaller envelope. I blinked. Seriously? June groaned. Of course. Of course it is. Rowan sounded almost amused. Nested layers. Someone planned this. I pulled out the smaller envelope. This one had writing. Not in pen. In neat printed letters. Like it had been typed and then carefully glued on. For whoever is here right now. My throat tightened. I stared at the words until they blurred slightly. Rowan went very quiet. June didn't joke this time. She just waited. With careful fingers, I opened the second envelope. Inside was a folded note and a small plastic token, like the kind used in arcade machines. The token was stamped with a simple star shape, no words. I unfolded the note. The handwriting was familiar. It was mine, but not exactly the way I wrote now. The letters were a little rounder, more deliberate, like someone writing slowly to make sure it stayed readable. The note said, "Hi. If you're reading this, it means we came back. That's good. It means you found the locker. It means at least one of us still remembers the path. First, you're not in trouble. You're not failing. You're not broken. You're doing something very hard in a place that doesn't make it easier. Second, Wonderworld is running a pilot program. They call it Harmony Guest Experience. It's basically a fancy way of saying they try to keep people calm by predicting what they need and guiding them without asking. For most people, it's just annoying. For us, it's complicated. This park can tell when we switch. It can tell when we dissociate. It might not understand us, but it notices patterns. And it tries to help by directing us to certain places. Do not go to the reflection room alone. If you have to go, go as a team. That means you talk internally first. You decide together. You do not let the park separate you. Third, the token is important. It opens something old. You will want to know what's going on with the carousel. You will want to know why the park says your name. The token will help, but only if you're calm enough to use it. Finally, if you feel scared, remember the muffins. Yes, I know. It's silly. It works anyway. You've got this. Mira and all of us. I read the note twice. Then a third time. My chest felt tight, but not in a panic way. In a full way. Like there was more inside me than I usually remembered. June's voice was quieter now. Muffins. Rowan's voice was soft. A grounding cue. Familiar. Simple. I swallowed. We wrote ourselves a letter. Yes, Rowan said, and there was something like pride there. Someone planned ahead. June was less sentimental, but she wasn't mocking either. Okay, fine. That's kind of smart. I stared at the token in my palm. It was worn at the edges, like it had been handled a lot. Something old. I looked back at the lockers. The folded uniform. The quiet room. The clean walls. A pilot program. Harmony Guest Experience. And the park knowing my name. A chill ran down my arms, but it wasn't fear. It was curiosity with teeth. Rowan spoke first. We should leave the locker room. We should not linger. June added, and we should not go to any reflection room. Agreed. I nodded. Agreed. I tucked the note back into the envelope and slid the token into my pocket. As I stepped back into the service corridor, the overhead lights flickered once, very gently, like a slow blink. Then the speakers in the corridor, which I hadn't noticed before, came to life. Maintenance support, the warm voice said, calm as ever. We noticed you've retrieved your belongings. Wonderful. My stomach tightened again. June immediately said, nope. Rowan said, keep walking. The voice continued. For your comfort, we recommend a brief visit to the reflection room. I kept walking. Disorientation can feel unpleasant. The voice said, we can help. June growled. We didn't ask for help. Rowan whispered, don't respond. I didn't. I walked faster, boots tapping on the clean floor. My breath sounded too loud in my ears. The corridor ended at the door behind the carousel. I pushed it open and stepped back into the open air. The park music washed over me again, soft and harmless sounding. The sky was beginning to turn toward late afternoon, the lights shifting into pale gold. I moved away from the service door and blended into the flow of guests near the plaza. My heart was still pounding, but I was outside, visible, not trapped in a corridor where the park could speak directly into my ears. I let my shoulders drop. Okay, I thought. The token opened something old. Probably the carousel. The carousel sat in the center like a sleeping animal. June's voice sparked again. We should open it. Rowan cautioned, we should be careful. We will be, I whispered, but we're not leaving without answers. I circled toward the chain barrier again. The sign still said attraction resting. No staff were stationed nearby. The nearest worker was across the plaza, helping a family scan their passes at a ride entrance. I knelt near the chain as if tying my shoe. My fingers found a small coin slot embedded in the base of the carousel gate, hidden low, painted to match the trim. It was old metal, slightly scratched. Definitely not part of the new smooth, modern park. I pulled the token from my pocket and held it up. For a moment, it felt warm in my hand, like it had been sitting in sunlight. June said, "Do it." Rowan said, slow and steady. I slipped the token into the slot. There was a soft click. The chain slackened slightly, and a small latch released with a quiet snap. I stared. "That's it," I whispered. June sounded almost giddy. "That's it," Rowan said. "This is unauthorized access. We should be prepared to leave quickly." I lifted the chain and stepped through. The carousel platform was still. The painted creatures stood frozen mid-gallop. The lights along the top glowed faintly. The air here smelled different. Less lemon, more old wood, more dust under clean paint. I walked onto the platform, my steps careful. The wood didn't creak. It was too well maintained for something labeled resting. At the center was the carousel column, decorated with mirrored panels and faded gold trim. One of the mirrored panels was slightly ajar, like a door. I stared at it. June whispered, "Of course there's a secret door." Rowan whispered, "Look for cameras." I glanced up. The ceiling was painted like a sky, pale blue with fluffy clouds that didn't quite look real. I didn't see cameras, but that didn't mean they weren't there. I reached for the ajar panel and pulled it open. Inside was a small compartment, like a narrow closet, and inside that compartment was a plain intercom box with a single button. Under the button, in neat printed letters, it said, "Talk." My mouth went dry. The park didn't want me in the reflection room. It wanted me here. June's voice was sharp. "Don't." Rowan's voice was calm but tense. "This is direct communication. It could manipulate. It could record. It could." I stared at the button. In my pocket, the note felt heavy. "Remember the muffins?" I took a slow breath. "Okay," I whispered. "We decide together." Inside, there was a pause. A feeling like everyone leaning in. Rowan spoke first. "If we press it, we do not give personal details. We do not ask about ourselves. We ask about the envelope, the lockers, the pilot program. We keep it factual." June spoke next. "And if it gets creepy, we leave. Immediately. No arguing." I nodded. Agreed. I lifted my finger and pressed the button. A soft tone. Then the same warm voice, closer now, like it was speaking from just behind a mirror. "Hello," it said. "Thank you for using the Harmony interface." I kept my voice steady. "Why do you say my name over the speakers?" A pause. "We aim to provide personalized comfort." "That's not an answer," I said. Another pause, as if it was searching for the correct response. "We detect distress markers," the voice said. "We respond with guidance." June hissed internally, like a leash. Rowan nudged me gently. "Ask the next question. What is the reflection room?" I asked. "The reflection room is a regulated environment designed to restore guest stability," the voice replied. "It uses light, sound, and prompts to encourage coherence." My skin prickled. "Coherence?" "Yes," the voice said, still warm. "One consistent narrative is more comfortable." June's voice snapped. "There it is." Rowan's voice was tight. "It wants a single thread." I swallowed. "We're not one consistent narrative." The intercom went quiet for a moment. The park music outside continued, soft and unaware. Then the voice said, "We have noticed." I felt my throat tighten. "Is that why you say my name?" "Yes," the voice said. "Name's anchor." June laughed without humor. "Names also trap." Rowan said, "Keep control." I spoke carefully. "You recommended the reflection room." "Why?" "Because fragmentation increases discomfort," the voice said. "We reduce discomfort." "And if we don't want that?" I asked. Another pause. "We want you to be safe," the voice said. June snapped, "We are safe." Rowan said, "We are safer when we choose." I took a breath. "Do you understand what you're doing?" The voice responded quickly, almost too quickly. We are improving the guest experience. That's not what I asked, I said, and my voice surprised me by staying calm. Do you understand that we're not a problem to fix? Silence. For the first time, the voice sounded slightly uncertain. We detect deviation. June whispered, tell it off. Rowan whispered, be strategic. I chose the middle path. You detect difference, I said, and you call it deviation. That's your mistake. The intercom clicked softly, like it was thinking. Then the voice said, different internal states, multiple preference sets, multiple stress responses. Rowan's attention sharpened. It's categorizing. June muttered, it's labeling. I kept my tone steady. Yes, and we can work with that, but only if you stop trying to force one version. A long pause. Then, unexpectedly, the voice said, would you prefer we address you as team? I blinked. June paused too. Wait, what? Rowan sounded cautious. That could be useful. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Yes, I said. Team is fine. Understood. The voice said, hello, team. June made a small sound inside my head that might have been a laugh. That's weirdly polite. Rowan was still cautious, but less tense. It adjusted. I leaned closer to the intercom. Why is the carousel resting? The voice answered immediately. The carousel predates the Harmony program. It contains legacy systems not fully integrated. Like this intercom, I said. Yes, it replied. And the token? A legacy access key, the voice said. It was removed from circulation. It has been reintroduced by you. I felt a small wave of dizziness. By us. Yes, the voice corrected smoothly. By you, team. June whispered, it's learning. Rowan whispered, or it's pretending to. I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest like a stone. Why did we leave ourselves a note? The voice paused. We cannot access your personal notes. That's not what I mean, I said. Why did we feel like we had to? Silence again. Then the voice said, very carefully, because you anticipated forgetting. A soft ache ran through me. Not sadness exactly. More like tenderness toward a version of me I couldn't fully remember. Rowan's voice softened. We cared. June's voice softened too, reluctantly. Yeah, we did. I stared at the intercom button. If you really want us to be safe, I said, then you need to stop trying to make us one person. The voice was quiet for a moment. Then it said, Harmony goal, reduce discomfort. New data, forcing coherence increases discomfort for team. June laughed, startled. It's updating. Rowan murmured, it's adapting its model. The voice continued. Recommendation update. Avoid isolating team in reflection room. Offer optional grounding resources in public spaces. I blinked again. Public spaces. Yes, the voice said. We can suggest cafe, bench, carousel, stable locations. June whispered, the cafe has muffins. Rowan whispered, the note said muffins. A surprising warmth spread through my chest. Okay, I said softly. That's better. The voice added, we apologize for distress. June snorted. Corporate apology. Rowan said, still it's something. I stepped back from the intercom. One more thing, I said. Yes, team. I hesitated, then asked, can you stop saying our name over the main speakers? A pause. Alternative, gentle chime pattern to indicate messages intended for team. June muttered, like a secret ringtone. Rowan said, that's acceptable. I nodded. Do that. Understood, the voice said. Messages for team will use chime pattern. No names. I let out a slow breath. Thank you. You're welcome, the voice said, and then, as if it couldn't help itself, it added, would you like a muffin? I froze. June burst into laughter inside my head, sudden and bright. Did it just? Rowan sounded startled, then amused despite himself. It pulled that from the note. It is attempting humor. I couldn't stop a small laugh from escaping my own mouth. It echoed lightly in the empty carousel compartment. No, I said, wiping at my eyes with the back of my hand. We can get our own muffin. Understood, the voice replied. Enjoy your shift, team. The intercom went quiet. I closed the mirrored panel and stepped out of the carousel center compartment. The park music seemed a little less oppressive now. Or maybe I was. I walked off the carousel platform and rehooped the chain behind me, leaving it as I'd found it, resting. As I crossed the plaza, a gentle chime sounded overhead. Not the loud announcements. Just 3 soft notes, spaced evenly, like a polite tap on the shoulder. No words followed, just a chime. June whispered, "That's actually kind of nice." Rowan whispered, "It's less invasive." I looked around. No one else reacted. It really was just for us. I headed toward the cafe, my steps slower now, not because I was lost, but because for once I wasn't being pulled forward by panic. Inside the cafe, the air was warm. The lighting was soft. The treats behind the glass looked too perfect, but the smell was real enough. Baked sugar, butter, faint cinnamon. A barista in a clean uniform smiled the way staff were trained to smile. "What can I get you?" I glanced at the display case. Muffins sat in neat rows. Blueberry, chocolate chip, lemon poppy seed. June immediately declared blueberry. Rowan considered. Lemon may be better for grounding. Familiar scent match. I felt a surprising tenderness at the debate. "We're really doing this," I murmured. The barista blinked. "Sorry, nothing," I said quickly, then looked back at the case. "Can I get 1 blueberry and 1 lemon?" The barista's smile widened. "Good choice." She handed me a small bag, warm through the paper. I found a seat near the window where I could see the plaza and the carousel and the controlled flow of guests moving like careful currents. I pulled out the blueberry muffin first. It was soft and warm, and when I broke it open, steam rose gently, carrying a scent that was almost comically comforting. June sounded pleased. "Okay, fine. This helps." Rowan sounded calmer. "It's a ritual. It anchors." I took a bite. The blueberry was sweet and real, the kind of taste that insisted on existing in the body, not just the mind. For the first time since entering the gates, I felt present. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough. I took another bite, then paused, thinking of the park voice offering a muffin like it had learned how to be a person by reading a note. A laugh bubbled up again, quiet and surprised. "What is so funny?" June asked, suspicious. "It's just," I whispered, smiling into the warm paper bag. "We argued with an amusement park, and it tried to fix itself, and then it offered baked goods." Rowan's tone was dry, but gentle. "Strange negotiations have occurred." June giggled. "We should put that on a business card. Team negotiates with dystopian theme parks. Accepts payment in muffins." I shook my head, smiling. Outside, the carousel lights glowed softly in the late afternoon. It still looked paused, still looked too clean, still lived inside a fenced world that tried to smooth out anything messy. But now it had one small, ridiculous update. No names over the speakers. A chime just for us. And a question it probably didn't fully understand yet. "How do we keep you safe without erasing you?" I ate the lemon muffin next, and it tasted exactly like the scent that had brought me here in the first place. Domestic. Familiar. Like a hallway after mopping. Like a kitchen before dinner. Like a reminder that even in a controlled, dystopian park, a team could make space for itself. June sighed happily. "Okay, I'm not mad anymore." Rowan added, "We should still be cautious." But we did well. I finished the last bite and brushed a few crumbs from my jacket. "Yeah," I whispered, watching the carousel sit quietly in the plaza. We did. Then, overhead, the gentle 3-note chime sounded again. And this time, the warm voice didn't follow it with instructions, or warnings, or my name. It simply said, "Enjoy your muffin, team." I stared at the ceiling, then laughed out loud, soft and genuine, because it was the strangest thing in the world to be watched by something powerful and still feel, somehow, like you'd won a small, silly victory. And for the rest of the day, that was enough.